Go. Let's just review the Mishnah very briefly. The Mishnah discussed about the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the Mizbeach HaPnimi, pardon me, where the Kohen Gadol would sprinkle on the four corners and then would sprinkle on top of the Mizbeach HaPnimi 7 times. So this is how he sprinkled it, hands going in a downward motion. And then the Mishnah says you start off from the north in this way and you work counterclock. And this makes sense, by the way. Look at this picture. Because when you're facing you're standing over here, right, facing the northeast corner where my thing is, right here. If you move to your right, you go this way. You go this way. That was what the Mishnah's interpretation is, and that's you go right, and you end off by Mizrachis Droimis, by southeast. Then the Mishnah says there was an opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer's opinion was he stayed in one place. Okay, he stayed in one place. He didn't go around, walk all around, because Rabbi Eliezer, he says the whole Mizbeach was like 2 feet, so he can go like this and go around with his finger. By the way, the author of the Tanakama, who said he actually walked around, was Rabbi Yossi Aglili. And then we discussed that he cleared away the coals. He had to clear it away and then sprinkle 7 times. Okay, 7 times, as you can see him doing it over here. And then he poured the rest of the blood that the rest of the leftover blood down a hole in the Mizbeach, the western hole. Maybe you can get a better picture. Here we go. The western hole. The southern hole of the Mizbeach was for regular carbonis that was brought on the outside Mizbeach. They dumped it down this hole. But for coming out of the Heichal, coming out of the building, the sanctuary, the first hole that you encounter was on the west side. So you pour it down over here. Okay. Now I'm going to review where we're up to. It takes 1 second. According to we brought a brisa, and the brisa says, the Rabbi Akiva said, you actually start from southeast and you work your way going clockwise, right, to your left. So if you start off facing the Mizrachis Droimis, the southeast, you're just going to make a left turn and go all the way around this way, right? And Rabbi Yossi Galili says, what? You start off from northeast and you go all the way around following your right angle. So this is where we're up to. We are beginning Daf Nun Ches Amud Sheni, about, let's call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines from the bottom. The Gemara asked, Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, you just go clockwise, and you're always going to the left, Nakif Derech Yamin. Why doesn't he hold that you should go in the right, going Derech Yamin? Because that's the idea. You always try to make a right turn first. Lema, we do say, but the Rami Bar Yecheskel Komi Palgi. They're arguing in the opinion of Rami Bar Yecheskel. Rami Bar Yecheskel said, Yam she'asa Shloima. You see, there's a pasuk in Divrei Hayamim and Malachim also that Shlomo HaMelech made this huge mikvah. All right, let's take a look how it looked. Okay, so I'm gonna just this picture is not even so. Here's this mikvah. Imagine this mikvah, gold mikvah, in the Beis Hamikdash somewhere. He made this gold mikvah, and all the kahanim would like dump, toivel in this mikvah, and it was held up by cows, I think, on each side. So why is this important?
Golden calves in the mikvah.
Golden calves in the mikvah.
Golden calves in the Beis Hamikdash seems a little odd, weird. Right?
That's a great question. I guess we don't bring gold in the Kodesh Kodashim, in the holies of holies, but outside where this mikveh was located, that's where he did it. So Yam also Shlomo, the mikveh that Shlomo made, was standing on 12 cows. Now, each of those cows was on 3 sides. Now, if you start off facing the north, Shloisha Painim Tzufayna, the 3 are facing the north. Shloisha Painim Yoma, 3 are facing west. Shloisha Painim Negba, 3 are facing south. Shloisha Painim Mizracha, and 3 are facing east. So if you start off west and you move to your right, you end up back at east. By Yom Aleim, the pasuk says, that the mikveh was on top of it, milmala. V'chol achareim, their backsides, boiso was facing the pool itself. As you can see, there was the backsides of those animals were holding up the pool. But from this pasuk that it goes from right to left. Whenever you're making a turn and counting, you should always start with your right side. And that's a common thing. When you go up the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the outside Mizbeach, and you always make a right turn, and then you go counterclockwise. So the question is, why did Rabbi Akiva say that you go to the left side? So the Gemara wants to say, Mar is like Rabbi Becheskel. Rabbi Yossi Aglili said that you go move to your right, you circumvent to your right. He holds of Rabbi Becheskel. Omar and Rabbi Akiva less later Rabbi Becheskel. Would you say Rabbi Akiva does not hold of Rabbi Becheskel? So the Gemara says, not so. The Kuli Alma Islu Rabbi Becheskel. Everybody would agree to Rabbi Becheskel. You're supposed to make a right turn. This is what the argument is about. Marsava, one holds Yalfina Panamichutz. Rabbi Yossi Aglili holds that just like in the outside of the sanctuary, by the Mizbeach Chitzon, you go in a right way, you circumvent in the right, turning to your right. So also by the Mizbeach HaPnimi, you circumvent to your right because you learn the inside Mizbeach from the outside Mizbeach. Umar Sava, but Rabbi Akiva holds, Lo Yalfina Panamichutz. You don't learn the inside Mizbeach from the outside Mizbeach. In other words, Rabbi Akiva would agree that you're supposed to turn to the right when you're doing the service on the outside Mizbeach. On the inside Mizbeach, you could turn to your left. So the Gemara says, but what Rabbi Akiva, nihi delayalef panim b'chutz, since let it be that he doesn't learn the inside Mizbeach from the outside Mizbeach, but what's wrong with turning to your right? Maybe, why did he say dafka turn to your left? Iboya hochinavit, right? You should do, if you want, you could turn to your left. If you want, you could turn to your right. So why was Rabbi Akiva like sort of like the dafka, you should turn to your left? What's wrong with turning to your right? Amalach Rabbi Akiva said a very interesting thing. You have to see the picture to understand what he's trying to say. Rabbi Akiva says you turn to your left, right? You start off from here. Now, when the Kohen Gadol exited, you can't see it in this picture, but when he exited the curtain, right, in the Kodesh Kodashim, he came out on the south side, right? He came out on the south side from here. He passed by this corner because the Torah says that he has to go around the Mizbeach. So really, it's like he should have put the first blood on this western piece, this southwest. But the Torah says you should go behind the Mizbeach. So the Torah says, as I made the arrow, you should start over here. But really, it is a concept that you're not supposed to pass over a mitzvah. Like you find that your tefillin shel yad, in the morning of davening, you try to set it up so you reach the tefillin shel yad before you reach the tefillin shel rosh. You're not supposed to pass over mitzvahs. So that's why you start over here, but you go back to the corner that you just passed over. And once you're going left way, you continue going left. That's the Gemara's teretz. Amalach Rabbi Akiva will tell you. Medina, really, me'ahu keren the paga bereisha buhu ava bereisha. The first corner, after coming out from behind the curtain, that first corner of the Mizbeach that he encountered first, that's the one that should have been sprayed first. The Amar Rosh Lakish says, Ein ma'avir ala mitzvahs. You don't pass over a mitzvah. If a mitzvah comes your way, and you have mitzvah one, let's say mitzvah one and mitzvah two, you don't pass over mitzvah one to do mitzvah two. If you encounter number one, you have to do it first. So v'amai la'ovet. So why didn't you do it on the first corner that you encountered, the Kohen Gadol encountered when he left the curtain? Why? The Torah says you should go behind the Mizbeach. Till you go around the whole Mizbeach. So the Kavan the Yohu Bahu Karen, since you put it on that corner behind the Mizbeach, so then you go to that corner that you should have done first. So clearly, that's the way. It's like a sort of like a tshuva. You should have done this first, but you actually did this first. So you go back and do it this way. That's why Rabbi Akiva chose to go in a leftward motion. Now, by the way, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, right over here, he actually holds that the Kohen Gadol exited the Kodesh Kodashim from the right side, from the north. So he started over here. So therefore, you can go in the right way. So it all depends on what their opinion was, on where the curtain ended. Is it on the south side or on the north side? Let's go to the Nun Testament Aleph. The Ibai is saying, if you want, I can tell you. If Rabbi Akiva would have held that you're supposed to use your feet and go around the Mizbeach, everybody would agree you should go in a circumvent to your right. If Rabbi Akiva agreed to that you actually go around with your feet, then he would have agreed that you should go in a rightward motion. This is the argument. Marsava, Rabbi Akiva holds, the reason why you go left is because hakafa biyad. You're only doing the circumference with your hand. You're not actually walking around the mizbeach. So if you're not actually walking around the mizbeach, there's no stress to start with your right. Umar Sava, but Rabbi Yosef Galili, who's strict about you should always move into your right, because he's telling you that the Kohen Gadol would hakafa beregel, would actually go with his feet. Oh, if he's going with his feet, he should go in a rightward motion. The Ibai is saying, if you want, I can tell you the Kuli Alma hakafa biyad. Everybody agrees that you stand in one place. Everybody agrees that even Rabbi Yosef Galili says you used with your hand. But maybe this is the argument. Mar Sava, Rabbi Yosef Galili held that you go in your right because Yalfinan Yad Meregel. You learn out doing it from your hand, doing it from your feet. Just like when you do it from your feet, you agree, everybody agrees you should go in the direction of right. So also, if you're not circling with your feet, but you're actually just using your hands to go around the Mizbeach, with your hands, should also be done in the rightward motion. Mar Sova, but Rabbi Kiva says, we don't learn hands from feet. And therefore, Rabbi Kiva said you could go in the leftward motion. But according to this, even Rabbi Yossi Galili would agree that you don't have to actually walk around the Mizbeach. You could actually just stick your hand and go around the Mizbeach. But as I said, that cannot be. And the Gemara is going to ask a question, because Rabbi Yossi Galili is the author of the first Tana of our Mishnah. And our first Tana of our Mishnah gives the same direction like Rabbi Yossi Galili, and specifically says that you should go with your feet. It's only Rabbi Eliezer said you should go with your hands. So it must be Rabbi Yossi Galili was the one that you had held that you go with your feet. So that's what the Gemara's question. The Sovar, on this last teretz, you have an opinion that Rabbi Yossi Galili says hakafa biyad. You actually circumvent with your hands. You go with your hands. But the end of the Mishnah says, Rabbi Lezer Omer, at the end of the Mishnah, on Dam Nunchesamid Beis, the top of the Mishnah says, Rabbi Lezer says, you stood in one place, and used your finger to go around. Michlal. So from this we can deduce the Tana Kama, the first Tana, which is Rabbi Yossi Galili, Loi Svirala, will not hold you use your hands. You actually use your feet. So you can't say this teretz that Rabbi Yossi Galili would agree that you actually use your hand. What's clearer is the first two rutzim are how to explain it, that the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer is simple. Mar Sova hakafa biyad. Rabbi Akiva was the only one that hold you circle with your hand. Mar Sova, Rabbi Yossi Galili will hold hakafa beregel, you circumvent with your feet. If you want, and no, we skipped this. And this is what their argument about. Mar Sova Sovav the Mizbeach Panimi Kisavas the Mizbeach Achitzon. That when you go around the Mizbeach of the inside, it should be similar to the Mizbeach Achitzon, like the outside Mizbeach. And therefore, in the outside Mizbeach, when the Kohen on a regular day would go up the ramp, he would actually make a right turn. So the Mizbeach HaPnimi, you should also go in a rightward motion. That's Rabbi Yossi Galili's opinion. Oh, Mar Sova, but Rabbi Kiva holds, Kula Mizbeach HaPnimi b'mkoim chada karen Mizbeach Chitzon koim. The one corner of the Mizbeach HaPnimi, the whole Mizbeach HaPnimi was the size of one corner of the Mizbeach HaChitzon. I mean, if you look at the picture, you could see the massive size of the Mizbeach HaChitzon. This is the Mizbeach HaPnimi, right? And let's see. Oh, here's the Mizbeach HaChitzon. So as I'm telling you, he goes always to the right over here. And he sprays on this corner and this corner and this corner on a regular carbon chatas. So you want to apply that to the Mizbeach HaPnimi. The Mizbeach HaPnimi was just like this. Looked like a very small little nothing. Not nothing, but I'm saying it was 2 feet high. So according to Rabbi Kiva, you don't learn one from the other. That's what the Gemara says. Ma'asav v'kul mizbeach hapnimi. Reb Kiva holds the whole mizbeach hapnimi is like one corner of the mizbeach hachitzon, and therefore by the mizbeach hachitzon, I understand you could go in a rightward motion, but by the mizbeach hapnimi, it's so small, there's no significance going in a rightward motion. Now the Gemara brings a little story. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael said, Shnei Kohanim Gedolim Nishtayu B'Migdash Rishon. There were two Kohanim Gedolim that after the destruction of the first temple, they survived. Now, how does two Kohanim Gedolim survive? Because really, once a Kohen Gadol doesn't retire, it's a lifetime job. The only time he can retire is when he dies. So how could it have been two Kohanim Gedolim from the first base of Migdash? The answer is there were two Kohanim Gedolim that served on one Yom Kippur. For example, one Kohen Gadol started the Yom Kippur and then got Tameh. So another Kohen Gadol took over. So there were two Kohanim Gedolim that survived the destruction of the first temple. Zeh Oimer, one Kohen Gadol said, B'yadi hikafti. When I was doing the sprinkling on the Mizbeach, I did it with my hands. Zeh Oimer, and this one said, B'ragli hikafti. I did it around with my feet. So that's even in the first base of English, there was a whole argument whether you should go around just with your hands or go around with your feet. Each one gave a reasoning of why he holds that opinion. The reason why you go around with your feet is just like you go around with your feet around the outside mizbeach, so also you should go around the mizbeach hapnimi, the inside mizbeach. You should not do it with your hands. And this one gave his reasoning that you should use your hands because the whole mizbeach hapnimi was the size of one corner of the mizbeach hachitzon. So the whole mizbeach was so small you could do it with your hand. Okay, so that's the machlekes. Now let's go further. Rabbi Eliezer he stood in one place. Let's go to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Let's just see how it looked. This is Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Let's back it out. Okay, he stood in one place, and notice how. Hello, Sheldon. We're just starting a new Gemara. So, hi, Sheldon. We're just starting a new Gemara. Notice Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that you stood in one place with your hands. You didn't go in it with your feet around the mizbeach, and you, with your downward hands, you brought it down or up. So this is what direction is he coming? Is he coming up or going down in the picture? So let's see there's two opinions on how to understand Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer, so the first Gemara says, Masnisen, money, Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion of what Rabbi Eliezer said. There was a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. What exactly did Rabbi Eliezer say? The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Meir said that. Rabbi Eliezer said, the Kohen Gadol would stand around this mizbeach and sprinkle the blood that way. Ba'al kulan, and all the corners, he would go from like an overhand motion from top to bottom. So you'd rub the blood from top to bottom. Okay, because that is probably the more nicer way to do it. Chutz, except there he did mimata lamala. For the one that was diagonally across the Kohen Gadol, which he had to bend over, so to speak, maybe if it was a short Kohen, it would have been hard for him. There, we allowed him to go in a downward, upward motion. That's what Rabbi Eliezer said in the name of Rabbi Meir. And you understand why that in front of you, as we explained in the Mishnah, you never went from downward to upwards. Because imagine you had blood in your finger, and you go in a downward, upward motion, the blood's going to roll down your hand and onto your sleeve. So we never really want him to do that way, although it's preferable to it could be easier to do it that way, but it's more likely to get messy. So the only one Rabbi Meir said that Rabbi Eliezer said you do it in the downward upward motion, mimata lamala, is only the one that was farthest away from him. And now why is that? Because at the end of the day, if the Kohen had to bend over and then continue the blood down, that's a harder move than having him bend down and then come back up. So that's why the one that was opposite him, he would actually, let's see if that picture, so this is diagonally across. He would actually, according to Reb Meir, he would actually come from the bottom going upwards because it's easier for him to do it that way because it's far away from him. And that we try to, I guess there was a lot of physical therapists on the team to examine what is the best, most efficient way for the Kohen Gadol to do this service. We don't want to tire him out and waste energy for a moment. But Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Leza said, just a little bit different. He would stay in one place. And everyone, he would do the motion milmata lamala, and everyone he would do down, from down to up, because that's by definition the easier one. So even the ones next to him on his right, the one next to him on his left, the one on diagonally, it's always down and up. But in the front of him, he would never do down and up, because if it's in front of you, you're actually bending your hands down this way, opening like a palm, and then there he didn't. He did it there he did it downwards, because if he opened his hand up and did it upwards, down to up, he would get his sleeve dirty. So his sleeve should not get dirty. So Rabbi Elazar's in our Mishnah that says this way is actually what Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi Elazar said, and that's why our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion of what Rabbi Elazar said. Then the Mishnah says, he's a mimeno al tahare shel mizbeach. Let's see. Hold on a second. We had this yesterday. The Chumash said, let's open this. The Chumash said this. The Chumash says, here. This is the, I'm sorry. This is, yesterday we had the Chumash. Here, I'm sorry. Here, this pasuk. Look at the Chumash talking about how spray on the Mizbeach. First, it tells you to go to the Mizbeach and spray on the corners of the Mizbeach. Then look what the Chumash says. V'hiza al be'dam by take your finger, 7 palms, v'tiharoi. Tiharoi means and spray. I don't know. It doesn't say where to spray on the Mizbeach. That will bring atonement from the, I guess, the uncleanliness of Klal Yisrael. So what does this mean? So the Gemara says, he's a mimen al tahara shel mizbeach. What does that mean? My tahara. What does it mean, tahara of the mizbeach? Amar Abba Bar Sheila palge the mizbeach. Actually, you sprayed on the middle of the mizbeach, halfway up to the mizbeach. Kida amri inshi tihar tihara v'have palge yoma. When the light enlightened, that's half a day. So just like noon is called tihara, so also because it's the halfway mark of the day, halfway of the aura of the mizbeach is halfway up, and that's not the way we explained it. So, and that's not the way we understand it. Basically, the Gemara asks, you're not supposed to spray it onto the ashes or on the coals. You actually move away the coals side to side, and you spray it on the roof of the mizbeach, on top of the mizbeach. So what is tihar? How does the word tihar mean the word top of the mizbeach? So certainly it's not on the wall of the mizbeach. It has to be on the mizbeach. On the cleared away portion of the mizbeach, because the pasuk says, like the clarity of heaven, lotoyer, when it's cleared away from clouds. It's a pasuk. So the word tahar could also mean clearing away. That's why you had to clear away the coals and the ashes on the mizbeach pnimi and then put blood on it. Chananya said, Chananya said that you put it on the northern part of the mizbeach. What does that mean? On the top of the mizbeach, when you did this, what side of the mizbeach was it? What is it, on the right side or the left side? So Chananya said it was on the northern side, probably the right side of the mizbeach. And Rabbi Yossi says, you put the 7 bloods on the south side. What are they arguing about? The one holds that the opening, when the Kohen Gadol came out, he came out from the south. So he started sprinkling in the south when he did the 4 corners and ended up in the north. And therefore, if he ended up in the north, after sprinkling the 4 corners, he did the top of the Mizbeach from the south. But This one holds, that means Rabbi Yossi holds that the opening of them is coming out of the Kodesh Kodashim from the curtain, you came out from the north. So therefore you started from the north, sprinkling on the four corners, you ended up in the south. If you end up in the south, that's why he holds that the top of the Mizbeach, you did seven sprinkling on the south part of that little Mizbeach. The Kuli Alma Mio, everybody agrees, Heiche de Gamra, Matanis, the Kronis, when you finish, wherever, at what point? At the point that you finish giving the sprinkling on the corners, Hosam Yoav al Gagai. That's when you put you put it onto the roof of the Mizbeach. My timer, what is the reason? Amakra, Pasuk says, the Amakra, the Pasuk says, V'tiharoi v'kiddushoy. The Pasuk says, Tiharoi, do it on top of the Mizbeach after you do it on the corners of the Mizbeach. Kiddushoy means to do it on the corners. Mokam Shekitchu, at the place that you stop doing it on the corners of the Mizbeach, Sham Tiharoi, then do it on the top of the Mizbeach. So when you at the point where you ended that last corner, that's at that point on that side of the Mizbeach, that's when you did the 7 spots from the Mizbeach. Then the Mishnah says, you pour it on the west of the Mizbeach Achitzain, the Amakrav is called Hadam Apar Yishpaich, the Chinafik Bahu Paga Bereisha. So we saw this in the pictures that when you exited when you came down from this building, right? When you came down from the building, which hole did you encounter? Oh, pardon me. Hold on. When you came down from the Mizbeach, you encountered the Maravi hole. Okay, when you came down off the steps, so that's the first one where you could pour the extra blood down this hole. That's what the Mishnah said. So that was the first one. But the blood from the Mizbeach Hachitzin, but let's say you sprinkled on the Mizbeach Hachitzin, then you use the southern hole over here, because so the Gemara says, Tanu Rabban, the rabbis taught, you should pour everything down by the hole that was on the foundation of the Mizbeach. So that was the southern foundation. There was a hole there, and that's where they poured the blood. So Ata Oime, you say you should do it Yisoid Roimis by the hole that was on the southern side of the Mizbeach. Yisoid Ma'aravis, do it on the western side. So like you did by the blood of the Par of Soyer, you came out of the building of the sanctuary of the Heichal and you poured it down the western one. So maybe everyone should be poured down the western one. In other words, the Gemara's question is, we know for a fact that the Kohen Gadol poured the Yom Kippur bloods down here by the Maravi one. So maybe every blood that was on the Mizbeach Hachitzin should be poured down by the Maravi hole. So the Gemara says, Amrit, you say like this, Yilmat Yeridasim and a Kavesh Yitzidasim and a Cheichal. You learn leaving the ramp to leaving from the sanctuary. Ma Yitzidasim and Cheichal. When he left the sanctuary, when he left the big building, right? So Besamachlai, the first hole that he encountered, that's the one where we pour the blood down. The Ezazet, which one was that? Zayisoid Maravi. That is the foundation on the west side, the hole that was on the western part. So also, Yeridasim and a Kavesh, from the coming down the ramp on a regular service, coming down the Mizbeach Hachitzin, B'samachloi, you do it on that hole that was most near it to it. The Ezazeh, Zayisoid Deraimi. Therefore, this is the Yisoid Deraimi on the southern side. So what the Gemara just said over here is precisely what we're discussing. That when you do the Yom Kippur service, use the Yisoid Maravi hole, that one that was on the western part of the Mizbeach. This is the west. You can't see it, but this is the western side of the Mizbeach, right over here. And when you're doing the regular service on the Mizbeach Hachitzin, the blood was on the southern hole over here. Now the Gemara brings a brisa. Tana Rabban and the rabbis. Tanya, we learned in the brisa. Rabbi Shmuel Oimer Zev Yisoid Maravi. Rabbi Shmuel holds always use that hole that was on the west. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said, Zev Yisoid Rami. Use the southern one. So the Gemara says, Bishlama Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel's opinion makes sense because Kesavar Yilmat Sasum Mefirish. You should learn something that's anonymous or closed off, which you don't know what to do, from something that it says what to do. The Chumash says on Yom Kippur service, the Par V'Soyer, throw it down the western. So Rabbi Shmuel said, then every carbon that's brought even on the Mizbeach HaChitzon, throw it down the western hole, the Yisoid Maravi. So Rabbi Yishmael's opinion, you could justify. El Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, my timer. What is the reason why? What is the reason why Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai holds use the southern hole? The Chumash says that when the Kohen Gadol leaves, he should pour it down the hole that he encounters first. So why would Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai say you should put it down the southern hole? Even Yom Kippur's blood, put it down the southern hole. So the Gemara is going to answer a fantastic teretz. Here's the picture of the teretz. The teretz. Oh, hold on. Yeah, here it is. The teretz is, look closely at this picture. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's opinion is that the whole Mizbeach was shifted over to the north. And therefore, when you left the Ulam, when you left the big building sanctuary, you actually encountered only the southern side of the Mizbeach. You see how you can see the line drawn over here, straight down. He actually encountered the southern side of Mizbeach, and therefore, it's exactly what the pasuk wants you to do. Pour it on the side of the southern side. That's what you encountered first, and then every carbon, pour it on the southern side. So the Gemara says, "Amar Ravashi." Ravashi explained, "Ksava pischa b'darim kari." The opening of the sanctuary of the Heichal was on the southern side of the Mizbeach, and the Gemara says, "Tanu bei Rabbi Shmuel b'debei Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai." In the yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, they had an opinion that said that Rabbi Shmuel agrees to them. That Rabbi Shmuel actually said that you should do it on the southern side. So in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, they said that Rabbi Shmuel changed his mind. And although he said originally you should do it on the Maravi, he said do it on the Toraimis. And you want to remember that Meshchua Gavre LeGavre. They drew one person to another. In other words, the Tilmidim of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai dragged Rabbi Shmuel to agree to what their opinion is, that you only had one hole and it was on the southern side. Quickly, the next Gemara, it's very easy. When you poured the blood down the hole, where did it go? To the sewer system and out. And the Mishnah says that the bloods had to be sold to gardeners to use it as fertilizer. If they didn't pay for it, they chayiv mi'ila. Tanur Rabban, the rabbis taught, my alim bedamin. If you don't pay for the blood, you will moil. You transgressed using kachim. That's called for nothing. That's called mi'ila. You get an avera for that, just for the bloods. Divrei Rabbi Rab Shimon. The Chachamim says ein ma'alim. There's no mi'ila by bloods. Okay, the blood has no kedusha to it. So the Gemara goes. We go to the New Testament base. Ad kan lepligi elamid rabbanim. The whole machlokes is there an Isser D'Rabbanan on Me'ila? That the Chachamim says there's no even Isser D'Rabbanan Me'ila. You don't even have to pay for it. You could use the blood. Reb Shimon hold that there is Midrabbanan Me'ila. Aval, but Midaraisa, Minatora Ein Ma'alam. Midaraisa, there's no Me'ila by bloods. Because the Gemara is going to darshan it from Psukim, that only the animal you can be moil, but not the blood of an animal. And there's a difference if it's Drabana Me'ila or not Drabana Me'ila, because if you, the rice did an Avera of Me'ila, you have to add 20% more, a Chaimish, when you pay back Hegdish. You have to bring your carbon too. But Midrabana Me'ila, you just pay back the principal that you took. So this is, if you use the blood, you Chayav Me'ila, but you don't have to pay 20% more, because even at worst case scenario, and our Mishnah holds that you do get Me'ila, it's only Midrabanan anyway. So now the Gemara asks, how do you know you're not moil with blood? How do you know that? Ula, because Ula said like this. This is a pasuk in Chumash, in Vayikra, Yud Zayin, where the Chumash says, don't eat blood. If you eat blood, Hashem says you're going to die. You get kares. Because ki nefesh habasar badamhi, the soul of a person is in his blood. Va'ani nisati lechem, and I gave you the blood to use al mizbeach, to use on the mizbeach lechaper, to bring atonement al nashasechem. Because the dam is the blood is the soul, and that's how you get atonement. By putting the blood of an animal on the mizbeach, you're putting, so to speak, the soul of the animal on the mizbeach, and that's how you get kapara. So from this pasuk, you could learn there's no me'ila. How do you see that? Because the Talmud Ula said, Amakra lechem. Hashem says, I give you the blood, lechem, it's yours. It belongs to yours. There's no me'ila. It's like your own item. It has no kedusha to it. The Bei Reb Shimon Tana, the Bei Reb Shimon says lechaper. The blood is only used for atonement. L'chapara nesativ. It's supposed to do good things, to give you forgiveness, grant you atonement. Loilam ila. You can't do anything wrong with blood. You can't be over the Isra Mila by desecrating, using the blood without paying for it. So there is no Mila on blood. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says, I have a third pasuk. Amar Kra, who? The blood remains the way it is. Lifnei kapara kla'acha kapara. That even blood, but prior to the sprinkling on the Mizbeach, is like after sprinkling on the Mizbeach. Ma la'acha kapara, just like when after the sprinkling on the Mizbeach, aim by me'ilah. Certainly there's no me'ilah. Because after you do a service with something, there's no me'ilah on that. Once a blood was sprinkled on the Mizbeach, there can't be me'ilah. Lifnei kapara, even prior to doing anything with the blood, before you even sprinkle the blood on Mizbeach, aim by me'ilah, there is no me'ilah. And this leftover blood, this blood that you never sprinkled on the Mizbeach, so you never did a kapara with it, still the Chumash says that there will not be me'ilah with that blood, because you compare after kapara to lifnei kapara. So the Gemara says, why don't you say the opposite? La'acha kapara ka lifnei kapara. After kapara should be like lifnei kapara. Ma lifnei kapara. Before you sprinkle blood on the Mizbeach, yesh b'milah. There is me'ilah. Why don't you say af la'acha kapara? Even after you sprinkle blood on the Mizbeach, yesh b'milah. You should say a new chiddush that even after blood got sprinkled on the Mizbeach, if someone would take that blood off the Mizbeach and use it, he would get me'ilah. Why don't you say that? So the Gemara says this concept, what I mentioned before, ein l'chol davar. It's not possible shenasas mitzvah, that you did the mitzvah already, umay alam boy, and you get me'ilah for it. So once you actually sprinkle and did the mitzvah of putting on the mizbeach, you can't be me'ilah with it. The mitzvah is over, the kedusha flies off. So there is no me'ilah after you did the kapara, after it was touched on the mizbeach. So we must compare that after the kapara, for certainly there is no me'ilah. So we're trying to say, if the Torah says that you compare lifnei kapara to after kapara, you say that blood prior to sprinkling on the mizbeach also does not have a kedusha to it that you could get me'ilah. And therefore, how does this all circle back? Therefore, the extra blood that they never sprinkled on the mizbeach, the leftover blood, right? They poured it down the hole. There is no me'ilah. If someone did it and used the blood that came out of the sewer system, the amma, he didn't do anything midaraisa wrong. Midrabanan, he did something wrong. Midrabanan, he gets me'ilah. And that's what our Mishnah is talking about. Because blood, by definition, there is no me'ilah for. A lot of concepts on this stuff, but Baruch Hashem, we finished it in time.
Shkar, thank you.
Okay, very good. So, Mr. Shem, tomorrow night, when?
Thank you. Good enough.